Welcome back to 60 Minutes. Hosting the biggest sporting event on the planet is a gargantuan challenge. You need world-class infrastructure and now more than ever, the tightest possible security. The world's elite athletes and their fans need to be guaranteed of their safety. In July, the Football World Cup will play out in one of the world's most volatile cities, Brazil's incomparable Rio de Janeiro. And as if that's not enough, the Olympics will be there in 2016. The only problem, Rio is South America's most famous city for all the right and wrong reasons. It's beautiful and it's dangerous. Rio de Janeiro, the most iconic city in all of South America. A pulsating, seething mass of 12 million people squeezed in between the mountains and the Atlantic Ocean. It's a place that's both beautiful and deadly. Crime is an ever-present threat. But Rio is trying to convince the world it has come of age.
You know, as it says on the flag in Brazil, order and progress, and people have always been talking about Brazil as a country of the future. But I think when it was announced that they won the right to hold the World Cup, I think the Brazilians felt that they'd arrived.
This is what Rio is famous for. It's not only the party capital of Brazil, but the world. And the international spotlight is on Rio like never before. In the next 2 years, it hosts the World Cup and the Olympic Games. And that means there's now a huge amount of attention on all that is good and bad about this extraordinary city.
You know, I'm from Sydney. Sydney is a spectacular city, but I have to say I've really fallen in love with Rio de Janeiro.
Simon Walker has lived in Brazil for 10 years.
So iconic.
Absolutely. Show that image anywhere in the world and everyone knows exactly what you're talking about.
He may be in awe of Rio's beauty, but Simon isn't blind to its flaws. He runs the Brazilian Traffic Network, which provides live reports during the peak hour commute.
Rio has the third worst traffic in the world. Basically means you spend a lot of time sitting in your car trying to get from A to B.
So one very minor incident could cause chaos.
Absolutely, easily. Large parts of the city can be brought to a standstill.
But it wasn't an accident that brought the city, in fact, the whole country to a standstill in June last year. A peaceful protest against bus fare increases quickly exploded into a full-scale revolt against the billions of dollars being spent on the World Cup and the Olympics.
It became politicised, and some of the darker elements of society infiltrated what was a peaceful movement and started creating chaos, and just saw it as an opportunity to make a mess of everything here. And no one could guarantee anyone's security.
You have a very big job on your hands.
Sem dúvida nenhuma, é importante.
Yes, without any doubt.
Roberto Alzia feels the weight of the World Cup on his shoulders. He's the man in charge of event security. Do you think they will protest?
Que vai haver, nós não temos dúvida.
That there will be protests, we have no doubt. But we also have a strong belief that it won't be with the same intensity and duration that they were last year.
Menores.
But violence is nothing new to Rio. It was once one of the deadliest cities in the world. For 30 years, the favelas, Rio's vast slums that are home to 2 million people, were under the rule of drug lords. But 4 years ago, knowing they had to quash Rio's reputation for lawlessness before staging these big events, the police, backed by the military, began a campaign to gain control of the infamous favelas. Urban warfare erupted. There was carnage on both sides. A police helicopter was even shot down.
The complex is very dangerous in the past. Now, the situation is controlled.
This so-called pacification has worked in some favelas, with murder rates tumbling. But you still have to be vigilant. I'm on patrol with Captain Lima Ramos, one of 12,000 officers assigned to reclaim the shanty towns.
Before pacification, how dangerous was this place?
After pacification, the risk to both police and the population diminished a lot. We cannot say today there is no risk. There will always be risk.
It's not until you're in one of Rio's favelas that you understand just how difficult it must be to police. It's a rabbit warren. There are corridors going off in every direction. Police have pacified 37 favelas, but there are still plenty more where law and order hasn't been established. It's a big job.
There are a lot of guns on the street here. This community we're in at the moment is controlled by one of the drug factions here. And when the police come in, they tend to sort of meet the drug traffickers head on. And that means that if you're living in the middle of this, you can end up being caught in the crossfire.
How did you end up here? That's a pig. That's a pig.
Luke Dowdney is a scholar turned social worker in Complexo de Mar, a favela still under the control of the drug lords.
I have to be a bit careful in talking around issues like this because I live here. Stop.
Is it a challenging location?
Yeah.
Pigs running wild?
Yeah. Well, at least it's not gunfire.
At first, boxing may seem like an odd way to turn kids away from a life of crime and violence. But for this former amateur boxer, it's the perfect weapon.
Why boxing?
Everything that you do in that ring, you can take into your life. It's kind of the theatre for life, I guess you could say. And it's a tough place, but you can't hide in there, and you also can't lie in there. So I opened a boxing club in this community called Fight for Peace as a way of seeing if I could start a dialogue with kids who are already armed, already involved in the drug trade, just to see if I could understand a little bit more.
"14 years ago, Luke started with 10 kids from the favela. Now, 10,000 have come through the academy doors. They have been taught respect in and out of the ring. Saving not all, but plenty from the gangs, Fight for Peace has also produced champions like Roberto Custodio.
It's a great sense of pride that we all feel for him. You know, we're so proud of what he's done.
He was a kid who lost his dad to gun violence in a favela.
Yeah, his father was murdered by the drug trade here, but he wasn't involved in crime. You know, and Roberto could have gone one or two ways, you know, and he'll now be at the next Olympics boxing for Brazil.
But before any competition starts, the question has to be asked. With violence still so prevalent in Brazil, even in the soccer stadiums, and with the threat of more protests during the World Cup itself, will Rio be safe?
I can affirm to all with certainty that Rio de Janeiro has never been so well prepared to host events with such grandiosity as the World Cup and the Olympic Games as it is today. Which doesn't mean we won't have issues with public safety, as all big cities have, but I am absolutely certain that the Australian tourist will have a good experience in Brazil.
Thousands of security cameras have been installed to monitor the main tourist precincts, and close to 50,000 police, the equivalent of Australia's entire force, will be on the streets in Rio during the World Cup. The hope now is that the Cup and the Olympics will be remembered for the right reason: the sport.
The locals are crazy. There is just one religion here besides Catholicism, and that's football. It's the only sport they have here. They're not into all the other different things, but football is for everywhere. And it's the great democratiser of the country.
Brazil is under the microscope right now, isn't it?
Brazil is under the microscope right now. There's nothing to hide here. So if you get caught in a queue for 4 hours, or you know, some other situation happens, okay, but you're going to have a good time, and that's the real Brazil. It's not like you can go to some other countries and they put on a facade, and so you get this clean image of something that's probably not the real country. When you come to Brazil, you're going to get the real Brazil.